For the purpose of documenting some parts of the Saab 900 restomod project, I decided to put together this video where I'm designing and producing the cooling ducts for the front brake discs and calipers. So starting in CAD, this is the caliper bracket version 2, which came to be after I realized that the version 1 would make it very difficult to add any rotor cooling. Therefore, I decided to make the version 2 in a way that allows for a duct to be integrated. The duct itself is made of two parts and will be adhered together as well as bolted to the bracket. In addition, I've designed a sealing ring for the brake disc, which makes sure that all the air that's coming in through the duct will only find its way out through the disc and not leak out anywhere else where it's not effective. Here is the caliper duct, which bolts onto the caliper, and what it does essentially is provide longer life to the pads and help lower the brake fluid temperature in very hard driving conditions. The so-called splash shield here is a full version covering the whole disc. However, I still might decide to go with a version which only extends to the sealing ring so that it can do its work. A little bit about the examples that I followed and some inspiration I gathered. As the calipers I use are the same as for some WRC Rally 2 cars, then those were my first interest and started investigating what kind of solutions they have come up with already. This Citroën C3 is using a metal 3D printed caliper duct and is available for purchase actually, but where's the fun in that? Here is a good drawing of the C3 brake cooling solution, which I'll be following quite closely. Also, some other examples on a few WRC cars and I believe some race cars. Just recently, Hyundai Motorsport published a video of the process of assembling a rally car, and I noticed their brake cooling solution, which made me feel excited and sad at the same time. This is so neat and compact solution, and I wish I had come up with the same split design myself. However, I've already produced the molds and parts themselves even, so better luck next time. But let's cut to the actual making of these ducts themselves. Here is a pretty straightforward two-part split mold made of high temperature epoxy, and I'll quickly show the finished part in advance which I made earlier for the same left side caliper. Yes, left and right calipers unfortunately are not completely symmetrical and require their own mold. The parts will be made of pre-preg carbon, which makes making these kind of somewhat complex parts way easier. I'll apply the first layer on both mold sides and then do a quick debulk in a vacuum bag, making sure the first layer is neatly against the whole mold surface. The total number of layers I use for this part is 4, but I debulk just the first. When adding the rest of the layers, each one I make larger, smaller on opposite sides, so that when the two halves are put together, then the laminate thickness is uniform throughout the whole part. Then I'll add the perforated release film and the breather cloth. The breather cloth needs to help guide vacuum to all areas of the mold, but also acts as a protective layer over the bolts to avoid them puncturing the vacuum bag. The bag itself is pretty simple, a bag within a bag essentially. It covers the whole mold, but also has to go through the opening of the duct so that it presses the carbon layers against the mold. I've missed this in the video, but before sealing the bag, I'm now also adding a thermocouple and attach it directly to the mold surface so that I can measure the mold temperature exactly. Then this goes into an autoclave where it gradually gets heated up to 160 C under 5 bars of pressure. After about 5 hours, the part is cured and ready to be extracted from the mold. Initial inspection is looking very good and the layers are well consolidated and the surface finish is excellent. After trimming and polishing, the finished part looks like this. Here I've also treated the inside of the part with Cerakote as well as gold leaf to protect it from radiant heat. So now to the assembly. This is the fairly tricky Alcon monoblock caliper, and as you can see, it's specifically designed to have this kind of caliper duct added to it. First bolting down the bracket to the caliper and then adding the rotor duct, which fits perfectly, all thanks to the CAD work in the early stages. Then I'm attaching the caliper duct with 4 small M4 bolts, and that's the final result for the front corner. Sleep and repeat for the other side, and the front brake cooling is done. I hope seeing this process was interesting to anyone else as well, other than myself. It was weeks and weeks of work getting everything together. There have been also a lot of setbacks during making these, and I believe 7 failed attempts making a part as well. I'm happy about myself not giving up, and I'm glad I've learned a lot during this process. If anyone has any questions or comments, feel free to add them below. Happy to answer.